Hey guys, and welcome to another season of the Ask People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we uncover the remarkable power of genuine compassion and insightful vision. This season, we're here to show the world that we, as individuals, are the brand, regardless of misconceptions. Join us as we go deep into the inspiring journeys of our guests, each one a testament to the impact and influence of kindness and creativity. Don't just take my word for it. Hear their stories, feel their passion, and discover the transformative potential within us all. So stay tuned as we shine a light on the truths that connects us and inspires change.
Hi, my name is Mary Clare Sweet. I am a yoga teacher, an entrepreneur, and an astrologer, and you are listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Ask People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I am abundantly humbled to have Mary Clare Sweet here, which is a cool name. Mary Clare is an entrepreneur, a yoga teacher, an astrologer, we're definitely going to get into that, and a life coach. Mary Clare, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Ask People podcast. How are you?
I'm so well today. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here, and just that the universe brought us together feels very lovely and wonderful.
Feels really nice. So my first question for you, which I love to ask any guest that comes on the show, is could you tell me about yourself, where you grew up, but also how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Yes, I would love to. I grew up in the middle of the United States in a town called Lincoln, Nebraska. And I grew up with parents who loved life and loved the world. They loved traveling, they loved eating cuisine from all over the world. When we would travel, we would go and dine with chefs that they knew or that they were excited about. We listened to so much music and all different genres of music, especially jazz music. And we saw art, we went to galleries and museums. So we were just very in love with the world growing up. And my mom and her mom had practiced yoga together with a woman called Lilias Folan, who had been on public television in the United States for decades. And so yoga was never unfamiliar to me. I wasn't necessarily practicing yoga when I was a little kid, but it was never strange. And I remember that both my parents were, had therapists, and so we talked about our feelings a lot, and my dad even meditated. So I tell you these things because it was just a very normal part of my childhood. My sisters and I have two younger sisters, and we loved to play outside, and we were constantly searching for these things called fairy circles, which to us were just trees in a circle or plants in a circle, which we were convinced were the real habitats of fairies all over. We loved to be in the mountains, and we'd love to be, outside in the backyard and in the garden. And we just had a really wonderful and beautiful childhood. I found a book about yoga when I was about 12 years old. And that summer, I sort of transcribed everything from the book into my journal. So I just wrote it all out. I didn't really know what it meant, but I jokingly refer to that as my Shakti pot, which is like the transmission of energy, because I just read it and wrote it out. But from that point on, yoga was always of interest to me. And I felt a little out of place in the world at school. And I think I was constantly trying to change myself to fit in with the people around me. And for that reason, I started using drugs and alcohol in my later teen years and was really just so sad, and had been diagnosed as bipolar, which at that time nobody talked about.
That's true.
You know, not like today where, you know, you can even Google something and go, oh, that's what this means, or talk to a friend about it. It was just not talked about. And whether the diagnosis was correct at all, it made me feel like there was something wrong with me that I couldn't really talk about. I also was bisexual, and I didn't really know what that meant for me, you know, because when I would try to talk about it with adults, it was like, you're either this or you're that, and you need to fall into one bucket.
That's
There's
not
no
true.
in between.
No, don't.
Right.
Yeah, no.
And so through years and years of, you know, being a part of the queer community, but also just discovering myself and knowing that it's okay to love whomever I felt like I was falling in love with at the time, that was a really beautiful awakening that yoga, you know, supported me through. So to rewind a little bit, through those days, those really dark days of my, you know, late teen life, yoga was always there. It was kind of always like my anchor. And I knew about the energetics, and I knew about the practice, and it was just kind of this boundary for me in a way that no matter how bad I was hurting, it was kind of there for me as a framework. So I lived in New York for a little while. I met a yoga teacher there who significantly influenced me. His name was Dharma Mitra, and I missed my sisters so much that I decided to pack up my things and move back to Nebraska. So I did that, and then I met and fell in love with a man, and we had a baby, and her name's Tallulah, and she is just ultra incredible. And then I decided to open up a yoga studio. So it was a family affair, and my uncle helped me, my mom helped me, and we kind of all just were like, okay, well, let's do this. And it manifested into a business that's still open today. That's where I am, Lotus House of Yoga. It's been open for 15 years. We have yoga, Pilates, cycle, like dance classes, anything to move your body to release cathartically the energy that you've accumulated through the day, and to really get to the foundation of yoga through movement. So every teacher who teaches here, no matter what modality you teach, you learn yoga. You learn through the framework of yoga, because what we really know is that yoga is a way of looking at life, and it's a way of getting to know yourself so that you can relate to and interact with everyone around you. So whether that is an expression through a different kind of movement, you know, isn't as important as what does it mean to know, love, and accept yourself on the deepest possible level so that you can do that for everyone around you. So today, I am married, and I have 2 more little girls. So I have 3 girls, and we just have the best time. I'm so lucky and so blessed, and we live here in Omaha, Nebraska. And I have 2 studios, and then a third in Mexico City is our brand, and then we have a full online studio as well.
See, you see how this is what I mean. This is the beauty of life. It doesn't matter where life takes you, who you fall in love with, how you fall in love with them. If your journey is meant to be in a certain way, it will always be that way, and no one can interrupt it, put their energy on it, take it away from you, because it's meant for you. That's your story. That is your story. And that's why I love hearing people's stories, because there are so many people who most probably have gone through similar situations like you, Mary Clare, and don't know how to handle it, don't know what to do, don't know what direction to take, feel like they're alone, when really there are millions of us who have something similar in our lives, or are going through it. So thank you so much for even starting that, saying that, and I know it will help people. One of my favorite questions I love to ask is about digging a little bit deeper into yourself. So this question is, can you define yourself as a person, but also who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to go from a person that you might not have liked the reflection of to becoming the person you feel has the ambience and purpose in the world?
I am a person who is defined through how I care for myself and I care for the world. I care so deeply, and I think that my journey through self-acceptance and self-love and healing myself from addiction or self-destructive tendencies, really, it was hard, but in a way it was necessary, so I could show myself that when I did look in the mirror and I didn't recognize who I was looking at, that I could heal through that and grow through that. And doing so would help me lead others to do the same thing.
Yes.
Maybe when I looked in the mirror during kind of that dark time, I just looked at someone who was working so hard to be loved, or working so hard to be accepted. Like, she was just trying so hard, and it was hurting so much that I think when I am able to look at her through, childhood memory regression, or, kind of traveling back to spend time with that version of myself, which I couldn't do for a long time. A long time I couldn't even look at that version of me because it was so worrisome and it just made me feel so activated. But now I can go to her and say, oh, you don't have to work that hard. You are so loved. You don't have to try to be anything that you're not. And I just want to, take care of her now and sort of give her a nice self-care bath, and then tuck her into bed and just tell her to sleep for a couple days, let me just take care of you. And so that's the feeling that I want to share with people, and I hope that that is what defines me, is my desire to care for other people and to let other people be free to be who they are. And not in the sort of only feel-good sense, it's easy to let people you love be who they are, but when someone leaves a relationship with you, or whether it's romantic or business or friendship, there's that grief that wants you to control how they are. But the more that you can accept people as they are and let them go and let them be free, that is a reflection of how you can do that for yourself. So I think being defined by the ability to be compassionate for other human beings and to feel love for, is today in the United States of America, the most important thing that we need to do is to remember our united compassion, and that we are all really here to take care of each other.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's so much going on in the world. I think rather than the anger that's in the world at the moment, and there is a lot of anger in the world, I think we need a lot more compassion, kindness, and forgiveness, which is one of the questions that I will ask you eventually. But one of the questions that I do want to ask you is, I know you also love astrology. I am a massive fan of astrology. We haven't touched on
Will
it yet.
you tell me your big three?
My big three. Capricorn rising. I'm a Capricorn anyways. Capricorn, I do believe it's a Capricorn rising, a double Capricorn, and I do believe Aries, if I'm correct. I was hoping my mum gave me the right time when I was born. But hopefully, but I know I am a double Capricorn, and there was Aries. That's all I remember when I was there. And you?
So I have an Aries sun,
Oh.
So today is the first day of Aries season. And no matter when you're listening to this podcast or our conversation, like, just know that the light of Aries courage and bravery is here to guide us all forward into the places where magic can be made. And everyone has, Aries in their chart somewhere. Everyone has, the constellation in Aries in their chart somewhere. But the big three, are your sun, your moon, and your rising.
Yes.
So like you, I have a double constellation. So I have a moon and a rising sign in Cancer, which is like the maternal, nourishing, loving, caring.
That's what my partner
behind
is, Cancer,
yeah. Really?
Yeah, so when you said it, I was like, oh.
Well, in Capricorn and Cancer love each other because they're right on either side of the wheel from each other. So Capricorn is kind of like that. I always think about Capricorn like being the hike leader, like going on a hike, and Capricorn's the leader, and the Capricorn's like, I've got trail mix and water for anyone who needs it, but we're going to keep going.
Sounds
everybody.
Like me.
And the Cancer is like, oh, but look at these beautiful flowers, and like, oh, should we stop to take a look out here? And how are you feeling? Like, keeping everyone moving, but it's like, let's appreciate the journey a little bit more instead of rushing through this.
That is so true. I like that.
Yeah, but I have an Aries sun, and Aries is sun is where you shine. And so it's really easy for people to know where their sun sign is because most of us know our birthday, right? Yes. And the sun travels in like essentially 30-day increments.
Correct.
But the moon travels every 3 days, and the rising sign changes like every 15 to 45 minutes. It's like a very short window. So all three of those things have a pretty big influence on who you are and how you express yourself in the world.
I want to know how you emotionally attached yourself to astrology. I know it's not just attaching yourself emotionally, it's also spiritually as well. And I find that one of the most fundamental and important things about astrology. You can't just go into it and go, I'm just reading astrology. There has to be, for me, I feel it's just my opinion, and I love people's opinions on this. I feel that you should have a bond or a connection to astrology in some spiritual connecting way. But I want to ask you, what was yours? What made you decide I like astrology? Because there are some people in the world, and I've had these conversations where, they go, I don't like astrology, I'm not bothered about it, I know nothing about it. Then there are some people like us who love astrology, who, go into it even scientifically, if they can. What was your emotional connection to it?
Well, I always knew about it growing up. Again, It wasn't like super foreign. But I was raised in a Catholic home, but my parents called us like cafeteria Catholics because we just picked and choose what kind of like worked for our family. And so I had a deep love of spirituality, and I loved knowing the stories about, the saints and the figures within the religion. So when I started studying yoga and I started learning about, the godheads or the deities within Hinduism and like yogic mythology, I had a deep connection to, again, knowing these mythological stories that people gathered around to sort of guide their moral compass, their, societal structure in a way. And then I started learning more about, the Greek and Roman gods and deities of other Egyptian deities and deities of other indigenous peoples around the earth. And one thing that I really loved was that they were fallible and they were jealous, and they kind of held more human attributes than did sort of this like, God that I grew up with, which was like up in the sky, kind of like perfect and maybe I don't know. But I loved this idea that these mythologies held the vast spectrum of human experience. And Astrology does that really well also, because every sign has some really incredible and necessary characteristics, and every sign has a shadow side that can be harmful, and is our downfall. And I see how those things played out in my life, and still today. I mean, I mess up and make mistakes all the time, and I'm like, well, you can blame that on this placement because that's why I did that. But I think what it, kind of returning to that idea of acceptance, it really helped me accept this fact that, like, we are imperfect, and it's not because we're bad. We're imperfect because we're not, like, perfectly balanced or something. We have this contrast in our experience, and we each have a unique lived experience. Mm-hmm. Every planet has a different influence and, benefits and sort of like malefic characteristics. And so I love that part of it, that it really encompasses everything, and it helps us accept the whole totality of who we are. And I always say, I would think that astrology was total, like, woo-woo, except that every single chart I read is perfect for the person. And people that I've never seen their Instagram even, they just, like, message me and give me their birth dates, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And it is to the point, spot on. I think that potentially there's also an energy that sort of channels through me that kind of opens up a knowing, and that the astrological framework helps me kind of stay, or opens me up, because I have something to tie myself to. But I think that it's truly helpful for folks to go like, oh, wow, this part of me is written in the stars, and it's okay, and it's good, or like, I don't need to change that about myself, or I can really lean into this part of me because it's actually a strength, and this is how I can use it. So the really cool thing about astrology too is that we can historically look back at transits of certain planets and conjunctions of planets or oppositions, and go, oh, look, this huge thing happened at this time. Yes. And when those are approaching again, those same transits or occurrences, we can go, okay, so this is what we learned last time. Let history help teach us how to, arrive at a more beneficial and peaceful and wonderful outcome than did the last time through.
See, and this is why I love astrology. I know I can talk about it all day, and this is the thing about people as well. I think when you have a love for people and wanting to get to know them and understanding, and I remember you said something just there where you spoke about mistakes. I learned in life, just from my perspective, that I don't see life as mistakes. I see it as beautiful lessons that we learn, and then we learn about what self-worth is within those mistakes. So regardless if it's how someone treats us, what we've been through, we go in a cycle, and this cycle, like you say, it comes round and it comes round several times until we decide to learn what we were meant to learn. And it comes from different people. So you might have a certain batch of friends, for example, and you need to learn something within those batch of friends. And then as you evolve, because they say we evolve every 7 years, you then realize that those friends are not, doesn't mean they're not on the same level as you. You just felt that now you've evolved, you don't feel like your mindset is on the same place as theirs. So then eventually in life, they may drift off and you meet new people. Now those new people might evolve with you, and then you're realizing that you're learning from them and they're learning from you. And that's the beautiful thing about people. There are so many in the world. Don't feel that you have to always hold on to the same people, and there's nothing wrong with letting go of people too. I've learned that in life, because when you let go of someone, you're given the opportunity to let someone in, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So those are definitely the things that everything you've said resonates abundantly. I remember saying about forgiveness. People see forgiveness, and sometimes they they turn it into religion, but I don't turn it into religion at all. I'm just free-spirited with it. I would love to know, what does forgiveness mean to you, and how do you feel it helps you in your everyday life?
Forgiveness is putting down a heavy, heavy burden and choosing to, release the burden of carrying it. And forgiveness starts with the self, and I believe that we have to forgive ourselves, as often as we think about it. Because if, we kind of have this saying, you are the only person in your own way, right? You need to get out of your own way so you can move forward. But I think that until you truly forgive yourself, you can't do that, because you're holding on to something that's taking your life, taking the life force out of you. So when you have forgiven yourself, then whatever that experience is, it starts to give you life. It starts to motivate your life. It starts to feed your life. And so when we can do that for ourselves, we can do that for other people. And I recommend, when the time is right, you'll know, because your mind will say, can I forgive this person, or is this the day? You'll know, yes, today is the day where you can forgive this person, and stop giving them your life force energy and stop giving them your life, and you can allow that experience to start to give your life more purpose and more meaning. And that is healing. That's deep healing. Of course, it doesn't mean that we need to ignore or forget or continue to engage in things that are harmful to us. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is the wisdom to know that, I have to step forward in a way that will certainly help fuel my life path, instead of continuing to give my life energy to someone else or something else.
See, this is why I like saying this. One thing I do want to ask you is yoga. I'm going to jump back and forth, and this is why I like this, because we have so many things that we can talk about. When it comes to yoga, how do you feel it helps? Because I remember you talking about bipolar, and I'm so happy that you openly spoke about it, because we do need to speak about these things more. How do you feel that yoga helps people who have bipolar, anxiety, depression, stress, PTSD? There's so many things that are now people can express and say they have these things without feeling like they need to be in a shell. How do you feel that yoga gives people that freedom to let go or just mentally release?
There are so many levels, but I want to highlight 3: the body, the mind, and the nervous system. So yoga, the asana practice, the physical practice of yoga, which looks different in different places all over the planet, and of course originated in the Indian subcontinent, and perhaps also in Egypt as well. But physical postures that were devoted to a spiritual essence, okay? And in today's world, that looks like physical postures that are devoted to consciousness or being aware. And instead of turning away from, it's being able to look at. And for most of us, that's a little discomfort, right? So being able to hold an uncomfortable pose. And the more that we can expand our capacity to hold discomfort in a physical posture, the more we are able to expand our capacity to hold discomfort outside of the yoga room. There's also a deep element of catharsis that occurs through the connective tissues of the body, the fascia, the tendons, the ligaments, all of the connective tissues in your body experience a deep catharsis and releasing of tension, of trauma, of pain, or injury through the practice of yoga. So the physical body does a lot of releasing and relaxing into what is in the present moment. rather than trying to change it or shift it in a way. The nervous system is influenced by the breath. So the more that we are able to kind of calm down our breathing, or maybe just slow down our breathing, or become aware of it, our nervous system then is allowed to go, okay, I'm safe here. It's okay to be where I am. And the more we teach our nervous system how to respond to our breath, and the more we build that neurological pathway for that, the more that it is going to do that same pathway outside of yoga, right? So we feel ourselves getting tense or triggered or activated, and the breath then is maybe able to slow down the nervous system, so then we can make a choice for how we want to respond. So then this is where the mind comes in. When you create that nervous system ability to either slow down or stay calm, then you can choose. Maybe it's the second thought. Maybe it's not the first thought of reactivity. Maybe it's not the first thought that's kind of the knee-jerk reaction, but a second thought or a slower response, so that we're actually choosing to say something or act in a way that is in alignment with our values and is in alignment with our intention, rather than our sort of like reptilian brain, or maybe our patterns of, trauma and fear. And let me reiterate, I am only a yoga teacher. I am not a licensed therapist. I'm not a medical doctor of any kind. And the layers of trauma that most humans are walking around with are multifaceted and deep. So every human is different. And as we learn more about how trauma lives in the body, and especially then affects the brain, and the brain's hypervigilance, or the brain's need to find safety in surroundings because it can't find safety within, the more we can craft our yoga classes to then hopefully serve more humans, more people as possible, and create a healing space, a comfortable space, so that those aspects of the body and the breath and the mind and the nervous system can help give you a more clear, conscious, present life outside of the yoga classroom.
I love the way that you expressed that. If you could choose one quote that represented you as a person, what quote would you choose, and why would you choose that particular quote? She's smiling. I love this.
Like, where do I begin? Okay, I have 3.
Okay, let's break them all down. Okay, let's do this.
Okay. So the first one is one that I've loved since I was a tiny child. It's an Emerson quote, and it's "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined."
I like that.
And this is a fun fact. I've had a pen pal. I've had the same pen pal for like 30 years.
I remember having
We
one of
became
those in
pen pals.
primary school.
Yes,
so
that's
cool.
when we became pen pals, and we've just stayed in touch. And I remember, like, in one of our first letters that we sent to each other, I wrote that quote, and I loved it so much, and it spoke so much to me, and I've always thought about it. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. And that's certainly, a part of my Aries energy. And then I also love a quote from Baba Ram Dass that is, "You can do it like it's a heavy weight, or you can do it like it's a part of the dance." And that helps me remember that in all things we have a choice, and I actually, before we got on our conversation today, I was speaking to a dear friend who's experiencing a loss in her family, and it's deep grief, and even within that deep grief, there is a sense of joy and appreciation and beauty of the time that they were able to spend together in life, and so I think that quote, "You can do it like it's a heavy weight, or do it like it's a part of the dance," just tries to remind me that in everything we have a choice, and we can choose to honor this life and be hungry for it and be present in every moment of it because it is so fragile, or it's a heavy weight and everything's a burden. And it's sort of, we never look at great figures, great leaders who are like complaining about what they went through. Great leaders and great figures and great caretakers found a way to choose to keep going through the hardest things in their life. And then the last one, I actually only know the first line of, really, but it's a poem by Hafiz, who is a Sufi poet. And it's this place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. Wherever your eyes and arms have bowed, God has been there knowing that you are coming. And it goes on, and it's so beautiful. But it just reminds me that it kind of gives me a sense of safety, that no matter where you find yourself, there is divinity there, or God, and God is such an interesting word, and it means so many things to so many people. But I hope that it can feel like the Great Spirit or a great consciousness that unites all of us, or that is within all of us. And that Great Spirit, that great consciousness, knew you were coming. Like Great Spirit, God knew that you and I were going to talk someday. Even from the time that we were, sparks before coming to Earth, like it was always divine to be this way. And that gives me a sense of deep appreciation and safety no matter what I face.
Do you know what? I love the fact that you broke it down like that. Because there are many times where I go out. It could be for anything. It could be for shopping. It could be just to have a walk. And then I realized that I was meant to be in this place at this time to meet this person, to hug a tree. It doesn't matter what it is. I was meant to be there at that time. And sometimes I have to take a moment to absorb that and realize that and embrace that, but also have gratitude for it as well, because sometimes you could feel like the world is on top of you, for example, and then you go out and for some reason that one walk does so much for your internal. It's unbelievable.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's definitely this one. I would love to ask you, actually, if there was one question that you wished people would ask you, but nobody ever has asked you that question before, what would it be and why?
I'm not sure yet.
I
don't hear anything.
It's not always an easy one, because there are so many things that we could be going through. There are things that we wished someone would ask us, but we don't know how we would like them to ask us the question. There could be things that, like I said, we're going through, but we're not ready for anyone to ask us the question. That's why I ask it, because sometimes there's just not an answer. And I find the beauty, and that's why you were talking about mistakes and so on and so forth. I see us as humans as imperfect, but the beauty of it is that somebody else will see us as perfection.
Yes.
Because all their life they have been waiting for us, purpose, for us to come in. So that's another one. So what would you do differently if nobody was judging you? The reason why I ask that question is because every single day in our lives we get judged based upon appearance, our voices, what we do, how we articulate ourselves, how we embrace people. But if there was no judgment in the world, the word judgment did not exist, what would you do differently?
I live pretty loudly.
I like that.
You know? I really try to live life by my own values, you know, and what my values are. I'm not really afraid of anyone judging me. I don't need to learn a lesson on that, universe. Thank you.
I like the way you said that afterwards.
I am good. There's a boundary there. I mean, I feel so privileged to be able to express myself the way that I want to now. I pretty much wear whatever I want to wear, you know. I'm 41 years old, and I don't really feel like age is holding me back in any way. You know, I feel like I have a lot of firepower to be and do what I want to do, you know. And I think that, you know, I've been doing my life's work for my whole life, really. I was a dance teacher for a long time. And while I was teaching dance, one of my favorite things was to sort of mentor the dancers, or like give a big inspirational speech in the middle of dance class to help people feel the music or feel the emotion. And so I was really doing like what I do now, even at a young age. And you know, I try to know, no, I don't try, I do. I know my children's astrology, and so allow them to be who they are. I know my husband's astrology, and, you know, let him be who he is, and try not to rely on him for, like, you know, it's so important to have my female friendships and circles, and they're like my rock and my, you know, safe space and my everything too. So I have a lot of support and a lot of people who've got my back, so that I can kind of show up in the world how I want to show up. You know what I am? I'm more so I'm afraid of hurting people's feelings sometimes, because I think a lot of people live in a binary, like, understanding of the world. You're either this or you're that. You're either this and you're that. You know, politically, economically, you know, like all those things. And I know that politically, you know, people's emotions are tied up in that, and their identity is tied up in that. And so sometimes I'm afraid of, like, hurting people's feelings, because I believe that, you know, the quote unquote side, or the expression of, like, humanity and compassion and taking care of each other and abundance, you know, we have enough for everybody. Like, we could feed the entire planet. We have enough resources. We could do this.
But you know, Mary Clare, you know that your opinion is as valid as anybody else's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know that, right? And your opinion could potentially save someone's life.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would say, don't be afraid to say your opinion, because it's valued, it's needed. And if you weren't meant to be here, you wouldn't be here, but you are here, so you have a purpose. Mm-hmm. You have a purpose to be able to articulate yourself in your way. And how do you know that what you say doesn't change somebody else's mindset for the better? Mm-hmm. We need good people's opinions. That's what I'm trying to say.
We should put that on a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. We need good people's opinions and wear them. And, like, thank you for sharing your strength with me just now. That was a really beautiful support, and that felt really nice. Thank you.
We definitely need it. Like I said, I think even before we began speaking, I feel like there is so much anger in the world. And as we know, with politics and power, I'm sure we can talk on that forever, but when ego comes into politics and power takes over, a lot of the time what people do to people is manipulate and inflict fear. When you inflict fear into somebody, it can paralyze them in many different ways: mind, body, spirit, and then the other person has the power to be able to control. And this is in everything, in friendships, relationships, politics, whatever road you want to go down in this journey. The thing that we need more of, which I've said, is kindness, understanding, the ability to listen without saying anything, the ability to just sit next to somebody and feel like both of you have had the best conversation in the world and you haven't said anything to each other. And I feel that we need this more now than ever. I think love is the strongest key to anything because you can implement it into anything. And I just feel that forgiveness, like we spoke about forgiveness, is the key to a lot of things. Now, the reason why I said your opinion is valid is because there are not enough good people, like I said. T-shirt time. There are not enough people in the world saying their opinions because, like you said, they're afraid of maybe the reaction of another person. And the problem with us empaths is that when we say something, we feel the emotional attachment of somebody else already. So we already feel that if we're going to say something, we already say to ourselves, okay, well, if I say this, I feel like I'm going to hurt you. But if I hurt you, I'm going to feel it. It too. Whereas there are other people who are not empaths, they don't feel like that.
Yes.
Right.
So right.
It's a gift and a curse at the same time.
Yes, you are so right on that.
It's an abundant gift and it's a curse at the same time. But the good thing about being an angelic being, or however you interpret it, is that we do learn to shield ourselves from negative energy, from any energy that we feel is a force that is not resonating with us, that's draining us, vampire energies, that they're always there. But the beautiful thing is to never deny these things. And that's why I say, I know it's a bit long-winded and I apologize, but it's just me kind of sharing my emotional articulation to say to you, Mary Clare, that your opinion is valid. It will always be valid, and you should never, ever, ever be afraid to share it with anyone. Because you're going to be pleasantly surprised by a lot of reactions. You know, so that's just for you. That is literally just for you. I remember you talking about music and being, a jazz fan. You listen to a lot of music, and I love that. So if I was to say to you, if there was one song that was the soundtrack of your life, what song would you choose, and why would you choose that particular song?
Well, for a music fan, that is a lot. Since I was a little kid, my granddad used to play tons of jazz records, and Louis Prima was one of our favorites. I had a school teacher who would sing "The Sunny Side of the Street." Do you know this song? And so I think that would be it, "The Sunny Side of the Street." I just love it so much. I sing it all the time, to this day. It's a really beautiful, beautiful little song. I love so much Billie Holiday. I love Stevie Wonder. I love Prince. I love Fleetwood Mac. I love Bob Marley. I have so many musical loves. But I think "The Sunny Side of the Street" would probably be my favorite.
Sometimes it's the most simplest of songs that connect with you. It doesn't have to be something that everyone knows. It's just about it connecting and resonating with your soul.
Yeah.
And it does something to you that no matter what other song is played, doesn't, penetrate through your soul the way that song does. It just does something to you. So, no, that makes ultimate sense. I've only got a few more for you, but when was the last time that you remember feeling totally at peace with yourself?
I feel very at peace right now.
You look at peace right now, to be fair.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel really peaceful today. I've had a really beautiful week, and I'm headed out on a yoga retreat next week, so that feels really inviting and warm. I love giving birth. And so while I was giving birth to my, each time, I felt very at peace and in communion with the universe. I remember the first time that I really felt it, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I was on our family's land in southeast Nebraska. And I remember standing by myself, and I was kind of on the top of this hill, and I felt the wind just come through me, and I thought, oh, this is what it feels like to be in this moment of spiritual unity. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I can remember it, and I keep thinking about it, and it comes to me in dreams sometimes. So that feeling of being at one or in a state of peace has been in my body for a long time, and I'm very lucky to now have tools that can guide me to that place when my outside world feels a little chaotic or not at peace.
No, I love that. See, that makes a lot of sense to me, believe me. So before we go, one question I always love to ask people is legacy. People seem to think that legacy is when you've passed, when you're not here anymore, when you've deceased. I don't believe that at all. I believe your legacy is the conversations you have with people, the impact you have with people, how you help, how people help you. Legacy can be defined in so many different ways, but to me, it's while you are alive. In your own interpretation of legacy, what do you believe legacy means to you?
Legacy is the way that your vibration changes the people and places that you've come into contact with. And I think Maya Angelou said, people won't really remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
And that's energetics, that's vibration, that's frequency. And so our frequency will change the people that we're in contact with. It will change the planet and the places on the planet we've come into contact with. Our frequency will, exist. And that's so important to know that your energetics, the way you create change in the world, is your legacy. And possibly the more subtle or the softer we can walk on the planet, and the more love and kindness and compassion that we can share with those around us will help our legacy be felt while we're both here on this planet and after we've passed and left our bodies and our souls are going to choose a different path.
Yeah, I had something very spontaneous in my mind when you were talking. It was, I would love to know what you were or who you were in your past life. It just popped up. It doesn't require an answer, but it just came out. For some reason, because everyone that you meet in this life, you've met in your past life. So it just triggered me.
Yes. I've had a few past life regression sessions where you go back and you, through the lens of your physical body, you find places where your past lives are still in your physical body. And I think that what comes through, no matter what lifetime, is a very like maternal figure, someone who wanted to care for or take care of the people that surrounded my soul, or the beings that surrounded me. So I've seen a version of myself in sort of like the 1950s, and experiencing that time in the world, and sort of feeling like I was in a tight shoe, but caring for, and specifically in that lifetime experiencing some grief. But I feel a lot of connection to warrior goddesses as well. So the expression of the goddess where she is at once like compassionate and maternal, and so full of, ferocious love and protection for her, her community, her beings, her followers, the planet, what have you, but also is like slays demons, like will slay, will demolish with wild superpowers in a heartbeat when needed. And so I feel, a deep sense of connection with that. Like,
I like that.
Yeah. Do you know who you were in any past lifetimes?
Ooh. I've been hypnotized 4 times. Mm-hmm. When I went back into one of them, I remember being a very young child, mm-hmm. and my own sibling betrayed me. I remember that. Mm-hmm. And then I remember, because I was having, I'm sure you'll understand this. So if we have pains in our body, I was told, like you say, they can come from past lives. Mm-hmm. So I had a pain in my back, and it was really excruciating. And I said to myself, but I'm really healthy. I do yoga every morning. And then I realized when I spoke to a spiritual teacher, they said, no, it's not you. So it's not you. And I said, are you sure it's not me? Because I like to be a comedian sometimes. Is you sure it's not me? And he said, no, it's not you. And then I said, okay. And then he was teaching me that in our parents, mm-hmm. and obviously they make us, they bring 7 generations of trauma with them. And I didn't know this. Yeah. So the pain that I was feeling, he made me go through it. So he woke me up from it every time. So, mm-hmm. and the first couple of times it was really painful. Mm-hmm. It was excruciating. So he woke me up from it, and then the last couple of times it started to fade, and now I haven't got it anymore. And people were like, no, that's not real. No, it is real. It is real. You can get rid of these generational attachments that come, yes. that you feel is you and it's not you. So I know in my past life I've been a young boy, a poor boy, sibling betrayed me apparently, I don't know why. I've been a musician several times apparently, which makes sense, because even now again I'm back to be, a writer, and that makes an abundance of, it makes sense. It makes complete sense to me. Thank you for asking also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for asking. So before I humbly have the honor to say thank you for coming on the show, I would love for everyone to know where they can find you, learn more about you. If they would like to have a conversation with you, where can they find you?
Wonderful. I'm on Instagram at MC Sweet Yoga, and that is a wonderful place to connect, and I share so much about what I like to teach and how I live my life, and the events and ways that you can get in touch with me or spend time, learning or going on retreat. And then I'm on TikTok a little bit. I'm on LinkedIn a little bit. But it's really Instagram where I spend the most time. And my studio is called Lotus House of Yoga. And lotushouseofyoga.com has a huge online library. So if you're interested in kind of learning more on demand about, yoga and the way that it can help your daily life from outside of a physical perspective, and into a more, mindset, philosophical perspective, or astrology, the vast array of methodologies that we have there is astounding. So Lotus House of Yoga also.
I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. For first of all, I always say time is precious, and who you share it with is abundantly a gift. So thank you so much for your kindness, compassion, for being who you are, for embracing me and allowing me to embrace you, but also more than anything for sharing your story in your authentic way. Mary Clare, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are more than welcome. And guys, this is where I say thank you so much for listening to the As People podcast. And please remember, you can listen and subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, or any other platform that you prefer listening to. And this is where I say, guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
Society has made me want to validate me from my illusion that awaits me, from how the people will perceive me. It's my illusion that awaits me. We fight our war with ourselves. Our mental health is silencing us from our heart. Social media is taking our time, connecting with each other soul to soul. Why we dance on TikTok, strike a post on Instagram, fight the web on a Twitter feed, link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok, strike a post on a Instagram, fight the web on a Twitter feed, link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok? Inside me, but the social media's corrupting me from being who I am every day. Different possibilities within inside me. We fight our war with ourselves. Our mental health is silencing us from our heart. Social media is taking our time from connecting with each other soul to soul. Why we dance on TikTok,